I'm going to introduce Kaelan Damitz. Kaelan is our Director of Student Success. It's an interview today with her. Kaelan, while I take care of this, would you mind um, giving us a sense of how you got to Christendom and how you got into this role that you are now?
Yeah, for sure. All right, so as Ben said, then I am the Director of Academic Success here at Christendom. I graduated in May of 2023, so just last year after majoring in political science and economics, which was an amazing experience. I first heard about Christendom when my older sister was looking at colleges. She looked into a lot of the Newman Guide schools and ultimately fell in love with Christendom. So I came and tagged along with her when she toured in high school. I remember going on the tour and being like, okay, this is a cool place, but I'm glad she likes it. I don't think I'll go here. And all that definitely changed in high school when I also fell in love with Christendom and all it has to offer, the academic program and all of that. And so ultimately decided to come here and just started working here last year. This is my first academic year here as staff, but it's been great so far. So that's a little bit about my background and story of choosing Christendom.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so when you came to campus and you were a stellar student when you were here. I met you I think when I came back here working in the admissions office. When you say that you are the director of student success, when you talk about how you're working with that, um, in a nutshell, what is your role on campus? Are you helping all the students? Are you helping a small number of students? What are you doing from the day to day?
Yeah, so I'm responsible for working with students who are struggling academically, coaching students on academic warning and probation towards academic success, and then ensuring the quality and integrity of student support services on campus. So while I'm often working with specific students more frequently, say students who are on probation and warning, I also am available to all students. And so really I do work with all 500 students. If anyone ever needs anything, then I'm here. I also handle academic accommodations. So if students are in need of academic accommodations at any point during the semester or during their time here, I'm the one to turn to with questions in that regard as well.
That's fantastic. It's I mean, I don't want to call out what type of student that I was at Christendom. It was not as good as you, but I took your predecessors. I was a big fan of the academic success coach. It helped me get through Christendom, and it was a very worthwhile thing. And so like when you are, I mean, you've been doing this for a whole semester now, but I'm sure you also worked with the academic success department before this. What are some of the typical types of academic issues that you like that students come to you for assistance with? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Some big ones that I see commonly are time management. That's a big one, especially freshman year, as there's a lot to adjust to for being in college for the first time. So time management is a big one. Procrastination, perfectionism, help with papers and study guides, handling academic stress, since there can be stress related to that, especially in like paper season and terms week. So making pacing plans with students to make those goals more achievable. Then I also meet with a lot of students for one-time meetings where we can just say, okay, here's this test that's coming up right now. How do we tackle this one thing? Or we can review their notes and help them study, create goals, monitor their progress in various classes, and so on. So yeah, a lot of different things I'm available to help with, but those are some of the big ones.
That's great. No, I think it's super important. And also, I should mention that we have a fair number of people here now, and we're super excited to have all of you here. I think all the students that are on the meeting right now have all deposited or are planning, at least in some way to at least they're seriously considering coming here in the fall. And so we want to give them that outlook, and hopefully, they're all going to thrive academically at Christendom. But as you said, right, there are 550 students on campus. You can't meet with each of them individually. What other academic aids or support items might students avail themselves of besides, I mean, they should all meet with you. I highly recommend it. But are there any other support aids that are offered on campus like that?
Yeah, so we're actually very blessed to have a lot of academic support, which is all free to our students. So that's a huge free resource. Definitely take advantage of it. In addition to academic coaching, we have the Writing Center. So the Writing
Mm.
Center is specifically geared at helping students with their papers. Um, the Writing Center staff are upperclassmen. They're students picked by our own Dr. Lisa Marciano from the English department. And so they're fully equipped and prepared to help students craft amazing papers. So the way that that works is that students can make an appointment on the library website for a Writing Center tutor to help them read through their paper. And so in those appointments, they can work on structuring outlines, coming up with paper topics, grammar, editing, understanding Turabian and proper formatting for papers. And the Writing Center is generally open Sunday through Thursday evenings, usually from 6 p.m. to midnight. So that's in the library. The Writing Center is a really good resource. We also have peer tutoring, which is available for free to our students every week for most math and language classes. So again, that runs Sunday through Thursday nights in the library. And these peer tutors are selected by professors of the respective departments and ready to help students with whatever questions they have for, Latin, Spanish, statistics, and other such classes. So I definitely encourage students who are struggling in classes like that to definitely reach out and use tutoring because it's there just for them. We also have the peer mentor program. So I'm in charge of the mentor program, and it's a really wonderful way to match up a freshman who might be struggling in a particular class with an upperclassman who's excelled in that specific course, oftentimes with that same professor. So if a student comes to me and says, I've been just really having a hard time in History 101, wrapping my head around the concepts, knowing best how to study for this professor, I can look at previous students who have done very well in their classes and done well in that course and have that professor and then match them up and they can meet on their own to figure out the best path to success in that course. We also have professor office hours. So professors have like open office hours each week for students to come and ask questions, learn more about the material that's being covered in class. If they have a question that relates to the material but they didn't get to in class, questions about the readings, even just to chat. These are great ways to get to know professors better, build relationships with them, and then learn more about your papers, exams, how you can do better in the class, and everything really in that regard. Our professors are amazing here and really willing to help our students. So I definitely encourage all students to stop into office hours every semester. It's just, I can't
Yeah.
express that
Can
enough.
I pause you really quick there?
Yeah.
I'm always shocked at how little, even at Christendom, I think Christendom does it better than most colleges, but I'm still shocked at how little amount of time students actually spend in office hours. Is there any particular reason or pattern that you see that, like these are the big reasons that students don't go into office hours, or is there, anything like that you kind of see, and maybe make an extra case of like maybe your own experience of students that you've seen that have benefited from office hours?
Yeah, so I think oftentimes, students might look at the office hours listed on the syllabus and say, oh, Tuesday afternoons I work or I have classes, so I guess I can't go to office hours. But oftentimes you'll also see on the syllabus that professors are available by appointment as well. And so I think reaching out to professors over email, it's really easy to set up an appointment. And so obviously then we have to be respectful of their schedule as well. But they're often more than willing or, to meet before or after class just to get that one-on-one time. And again, I definitely advocate for that. It makes all the difference. Office hours I know has been really helpful for me as a student, and it really helped me to build my relationship up with my professors during my time as a student, which now actually carries over into my role since I'm still interacting with professors every week. So yeah, I think oftentimes work commitments or class schedule, sometimes students might feel intimidated or, the professor is in their office, they're doing work, I can't disturb them. But office hours are those hours specifically available in their schedules to help students. And so they're always willing to help students during that time. Even if it looks like they're working on something, they're more than happy to help our students because, their doors open during office hours. So
100%. No, that's great. I think so often, at least I'm in the admissions world all the time. I see these stats from schools saying we have, a 15-to-1 student to faculty ratio. We have a 13-to-1 student faculty to ratio. And there's these bureaucratic, complicated numbers of how they calculate those numbers, where they say, okay, we have this many teaching assistants, we have this many assistant professors, and we get a good looking number. in my experience, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well, it, regardless of the number, right? At Christendom, we're on a humane scale where the professors know you by name already, and they want to know you better, and they want to spend time with you in office hours. And if you show any, even the faintest interest in something, they're delighted in it. I was a terrible Latin student, and Dr. Beer would be delighted to talk to me about feminine rhymes and all these things because this is something that he loves, and he wants to pass on that discipline. So I don't want to keep railroad. This is your talk, Kaelan. But no, I just want to underline that so much. Is there any other things that you wanted to add about academic aids or anything like that? Or
Um,
like, I guess like note taking or anything like that? I'm trying to remember if there's anything else that I missed.
Yeah, oftentimes there are study groups that students will arrange, just kind of amongst themselves, but small study groups before an exam. Students get together, share their notes, build study guides together, and kind of help, fill in gaps that each other may have. Sometimes even professors offer study sessions before a midterm.
Hmm.
Those are always incredibly helpful. Not guaranteed, but amazing resource. So definitely take advantage of those if your professors offer them. And then for academic accommodations, if students do find themselves in need of academic accommodations at any point during the semester, then we offer those as well. And I'm happy to work with students to find that best path to success here.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Sorry to override you there with the office hours thing.
Yeah, no, I
Well,
love office hours.
I mean, we offer all these. I mean, I remember this is something that was really big coming up, and I think we still try to stress this in admissions. And we often say like, if you want to be here, we're going to provide you the resources, right? Even if you're struggling, if we've admitted you, we think you have what it takes to succeed, and we're going to offer you the tools. That being said, right, we have all these tools available. We have the life preservers. I know that some students fail out. Like when we say, typical students, how many students would you say fail out per year in your, maybe from what you've heard, or like, in that first semester? Do many students fail out?
Yeah, so there are students who do fail out. Luckily, this is not many students. Not many do because, as you said, while Christendom is very academically rigorous, we also do have many resources in place to help students who are struggling. So really, as long as the student is willing to accept that help and willing to work through the classes and the material to achieve success, it's definitely possible. And we're all here rooting for our students, and we do all want them to succeed. Um, and so while some students do fail out, that is a small number. And if the students wanted the help to succeed and continue their time at Christendom, we can definitely get them on track for that.
Fantastic. No, thank you for sharing that. So when besides failing out, right? I know a lot of our students that are looking here are here on academic scholarship, and I think we'll talk about the GPA and things like that. What do you remember off the top of your head, like how do you keep your academic scholarship? Would you mind explaining that first? Like, what is there a
Yeah,
GPA you have to
so
maintain?
right, yeah. So for academic scholarships, the GPA required to maintain those is usually a 3.0 or higher, which is a 3.0 is straight B's. And so to keep the academic merit-based scholarships, that's the GPA that a student would need to have. The financial aid office will review that each year. So if a student at the end of the semester has below a 3.0 either semester or cumulative GPA, that's how you can regain those or re-earn them back. So say a student got below a 3.0 and lost the scholarship, if they got above a 3.0 the next semester next year, then that would be reinstated for their next academic year, if that makes sense.
So just so I'm understanding this is, and I want to kind of make this clear because I know I get parents reaching out to me, every year that their student got a 2.8 in their first semester because Christendom is very rigorous. And even if you had a 4.0 in high school, sometimes that's happens more often than not. Um, so you get a 2.8 in your first semester. You're then on probation for one semester. Is that correct? So you still have your scholarship for that second semester, and then if you get back up, you keep the scholarship, or do you lose it immediately if you get that 2.8?
Yeah, so maybe we can go into academic probation and warning separately. So that would be below a 2.0. So
So
there's a
I'm what I
whole,
sorry what and again this is where it's a little bit like it's a probationary system for the scholarship, not academic probation. Two different.
okay, gotcha.
Does that make sense? Or maybe we're on different pages here, and this is a good thing that we're getting out right now.
Yeah,
But tell me what you talk your students through.
yeah. So as far as I know, then I'm not aware of a financial aid probation in that sense, but
Okay.
that may just be something I'm not aware of. So I can definitely look into that. Um, but I would say just that if a student has a 2.7 after their freshman year, and then loses the academic scholarship for their sophomore year, if they got above a 3.0 sophomore year, they get their scholarship back for junior
Yeah.
year.
Okay.
Or if they got above a 3.0 their first semester sophomore year, they could even reach out to the financial aid
Hmm.
office and let them know in writing that they have above that 3.0 and get it reinstated even as soon as that spring semester.
We're saying the same thing. I was just using a different language. My apologies.
Okay.
No,
No
so
worries.
how about then? Like, so if you lose it, you can get it back. We want to make that clear for everybody. We're rooting for you. We don't want to smack you down. We're not trying to keep money back from you. We want you to keep your academic scholarship. And even if you do lose your academic scholarship, oftentimes they do try to supply the financial aid department tries to supply some of that loss with need-based grants in the time being to float you along. So we don't want to leave you in a $6,000, $12,000 hole because you were off by a couple percentage points. But let's kind of take that one step further. I mentioned academic probation. Can you explain what that is? Kind of grounds for what would be commonly referred to as failing out?
Yes. So in a student's first semester, if they get below a 1.0 GPA, which is straight D's, so below straight D's, then they'll be academically dismissed. So that would be that, failing out academic dismissal off the bat. After that first semester, we have a system of academic probation and academic warning. So the student's GPA falls between a 1.7 and a 2.0. They'll be placed on academic warning for the following semester. And if their GPA falls between a 1.0 and a 1.699, they'll be placed on academic probation. So really the things to watch out for there is like when you're on academic probation, you'll be at risk of being academically dismissed because 2 consecutive semesters of academic probation results in an academic dismissal. And then likewise, 4 semesters of academic warning would result in an academic dismissal. Here's where it gets a little bit technical and complicated because 2 semesters of academic warning equals being on academic probation. So a student could be academically dismissed after 2 semesters of probation, 4 semesters of warning, or some combination of the two, if that makes sense. But as
Yeah.
soon as a
No.
student achieves a 2.0 or above, then they're off academic warning or off academic probation, and that kind of resets that count. But
Great.
essentially, if a student was placed on academic warning, but then the next semester gets above a 2.0, then they'll be off warning.
And at a certain point, I think it's the big midpoint after midterms of the semester. That's when students, especially first year students, come on your radar that are struggling. Right, we want to get them the resources. So at this process, we want to give them warning signs, being like, "Hey, this is where you are. We want to give you the resources if you want. Here's Miss Damitz. We want to get all these things together." So we kind of are going through all this process right now. We don't want it to be esoteric. We want it to be very clear and upfront with you as time goes on. So if you ever have any questions while you're a student or even before you're a student, please come talk to me. Please come talk to Kaelan. We want to help you. We want to help make this all work out. The biggest thing that I see when students, fail out, when students receive academic dismissal, it's because they didn't talk to anybody about it. There's kind of a despairing thing where like, well, okay, here we are, might as well give up now, enjoy the rest of the semester. I can easily see how a student might feel that way, but there's always hope, and we want to work with students in that process. So that's kind of an important thing. So kind of moving then to things that might actually apply to the current audience that we have right now. in your experience, right? A lot of these people will be coming this August to Christendom for the first time. They've been doing great in their academics up to this point. They've, written a college application essay. They've gotten an academic letter of recommendation. We, as the admissions department, have said, you're good to go, ready to take off. We think you can do well at Christendom. Um, I guess I guess with this, like, how about let's just talk with like time management, right? You mentioned that at the beginning. What are some time management tips that you might offer as, advice to freshmen coming in their first weeks, month, semester?
Yeah, yeah. And so, as I said, time management is a big one because there are a lot of commitments to manage in college, especially in the first year. So that, that ranges from academics to maybe sports, extracurriculars, relationships with family at home, new friends here, old friends from home, and also sleep is really important. So there's a lot to balance in first semester and throughout college. So my number one tip would be don't overcommit because there are a lot of new and exciting opportunities first coming to Christendom. I mean, we have so many clubs and events all the time, but you don't want to wear yourself out by spreading yourself too thin. So know your limits. Um, Maybe what would help to know your limits is figuring out your priorities because we manage time based on our priorities. So whatever you see as most important will come first in your life. So there are many ways to do this. You could even just do like a brain dump. I often recommend for students. So, writing lists of maybe a list of everything that's important to you, a list of everything you need to do that week, and a list of everything that's stressing you out. And then, you have all those lists laid out. It helps you organize your thoughts, and then you'll be able to get those things done more efficiently. So brain dumps, managing your
So good.
time. Yeah, making a routine is really helpful. Whether that's a morning routine, evening routine, day routine, week routine, all of it's helpful because giving your day or week some kind of rhythm is amazingly helpful, but also motivating for accomplishing tasks. Because when we have that successful morning routine, we've already had a bit of a productive day, and so we're more likely to be successful and productive for the rest of the day. So making that routine, being disciplined with your time, so creating good habits, setting goals for yourself, for the kind of person and the kind of student that you want to be. Planning your weekend work is a big one, time management wise, especially for freshmen, because sometimes you'll have a lot of school to do, while other times, especially in the beginnings of the semester, you'll have a lot more free time. So planning your weekend work maybe by keeping up with homework and doing it the day that it's assigned, you'll always be 2 steps ahead of class days. And then over the weekends, you can catch up on bigger projects like papers or presentations or study guides, or just, have a weekend off if you don't have any of those things at that time. Let's see, for time management, also setting boundaries with your commitments, whether that's in relationships or maybe one class takes, it feels like 7 hours to do the homework and then it only leaves 30 minutes for the rest of your homework, setting those boundaries to keep everything in its place. Aware of what distracts you, making a list of those distractions so that you can stay focused on what you need to be working on. And then using a planner is a huge one for time management. It makes everything so much easier because it's all organized and in one place. And luckily, Christendom's been giving all of their students free planners attached to the student handbook at the beginning of the academic year. So, you have a free resource and might as well use it, and it really does help out. So those are some of the first, I think, big time management tips that come to mind.
Listen, this is I know I was given this advice when I was a freshman, but for all of you watching here, I wish I could still go back to my young Ben in 2015 and shake him by the shoulders and say, listen to these things. Um, yeah, I think the only thing that I would add is, yeah, be disciplined, but also I think be gentle with yourself. Like you're going to mess up, and it's not the end of the world. So yeah, continue on. It's gonna work out. It's gonna be fine. Just always, I have printed on the inside of my glasses here, Nunc Chapi, which is Latin for now I begin again, right? It's now, it's always, kind of a let's go, like there's always going to be a part where you could have done something better, but there's so many things to work on at Christendom where, again, we're not just trying to give you a training. Like there's a lot of schools that do a great job of giving you a training in one way or another. We're trying to give you a formation, right? A Catholic formation that is going to help you be a better woman, a better man, formed, after Christ. We're going to try to give you the Romans 12:2 mindset, right? To be not conform to the ways of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And so anything that you do, it's going to be a work in progress. We don't expect you to be perfect from the beginning. But it's going to be a work in progress. So we hope you keep developing, and definitely heed Miss Damitz's advice here, because it's super important. You mentioned writing papers over the weekends. Is there any, like, I guess, what are the biggest changes freshmen should be prepared for when they go from writing papers in high school to writing papers in college? Because I mean, by the time we graduate, writing senior theses, and these, you're writing 10-page, 20-page papers. What should the students expect?
Yeah, so that you're definitely right that academic expectations shift from high school to college. Um, and that might be especially true depending on one's high school experience. So, homeschooling versus public school versus Catholic school, even just so many types of homeschooling that maybe somebody grew up with. Specifically regarding papers, I'd say that the length and intensity of research for the papers noticeably changes, as well as the type of formatting that we use. So I think formatting is the number one thing that students come in and first see as like, that's different. Like, I've not seen something like this before. So we have a guide that's printed out called the Vademecum, and that explains how to format your papers and cite sources. And it's mostly based on Kate Turabian's manual for writers, with like a couple small changes. But yeah, the Vademecum itself provides a lot of helpful examples on how to cite things, and so there is that learning process there. And again, the Writing Center is here to help. I'm here to help. Upperclassmen can help. So with formatting and things, I think that's a big one that students run into their first semester at Christendom, is learning how to format all of those things correctly. But ultimately, by the end, I mean, even a couple semesters in, you have it down, you know it inside and out, and it's not really a big issue. The length of intensity of papers, I'd say, does change from high school, but that doesn't mean that students are just kind of thrown in the deep end and like, okay, write a college paper, 10 pages, go, from the get-go, luckily. So actually the students at Christendom especially does this in a very smooth transition through our core program. So students are prepared and challenged each semester to kind of increase their abilities and expand their horizons. So in the first semester, students often have 2 literature papers, a short history paper, and maybe a couple other reflections for classes. And then this increases bit by bit as they progress semester to semester, so that come senior year, they are ready to write their senior thesis. And so, yeah, the senior thesis sounds like a big deal. That's one of those things that when I came here in 8th grade, when my sister was touring, I was like, I don't want to come to Christendom because I have to write a thesis. Not for me. But by the time I got to that point, I was like, I feel ready for this because, we have this experience writing papers for all these different classes, and we're challenged and we grow to those challenges. And so by the end of it, it's like, okay, I have this whole semester to write this paper and it's a big deal, but I have the guidance of my professor and I know I can do this. A quick note on the senior thesis, just in case anyone isn't familiar with them. Every senior to graduate Christendom needs to write a senior thesis. So it's a semester-long project that's undertaken under the guidance of a specific professor who's your major, who's your thesis advisor. And so that professor will help you to craft the ideas and the structure and the argument of your thesis. They're 20 plus pages, 30 plus pages. And then later on, what's cool is that the senior theses are all printed and bound and placed in our library here on campus. So when you come to tour campus, maybe Ben doesn't like that, but you can come and look back and see all the senior theses that have been written over the years, and it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I didn't think about that until I was, graduated. I was a double major here at Christendom, and instead of writing one good thesis, I wrote 2 mediocre theses. So yes, they are available to be read. But if you are kind to me, please don't read them. No, that's I'm sure a much more delightful read would be Kaelan's. But yeah. Okay, last question before we get into the questions. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat below. I don't think anybody's added any questions, but if you have any questions that you're worried about, please type them away. We'll get to them after this. So just broadly speaking, we have a number of currently accepted students, deposited students here right now, and they're preparing to enter Christendom this fall. Any thing that they could start, is there anything that they could start doing now to prepare themselves to be more academically successful when they come here this fall?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think off the bat is just first be excited because this is a huge step and like a huge change in life. And it comes full of like many new and exciting events. So academically, while Christendom can be very intense, it's also just a wonderful experience. So just get excited for it, be at peace with it. The curriculum is really enriching, and we're so blessed to learn from these excellent Catholic minds here with our professors and just incredible faculty and staff who are all here willing and ready to help educate and prepare you for life. So be excited. I'd say also start evaluating the ways that you can improve your work ethic and live out your vocation as a student. So as Catholics, we're called to be great, we're called to be saints. And being dedicated to your work and studies is a great way to fulfill God's will for your life, especially during this time when your vocation is a student. I think, as St. Therese of Lisieux said, holiness consists simply in doing God's will and being just what God wants us to be. And so during this time when you're a student, do that well and like take advantage of this time and these opportunities that you're blessed with. Third, I'd say start learning more about yourself. And this can help with your academics because you can analyze like what's your most productive time of day? Are you a night owl or a morning person? When do you study best? In what kind of environment do you learn and study best? What's your personal learning style? Are audiobooks or reading, more helpful, and where's your better reading comprehension? These are all topics that I cover in academic coaching, and I'm happy to help you understand and address when you're here at Christendom. But it's also helpful just to start learning about yourself to get a head start on this and be prepared for college. I'd also say, as I said earlier, building routines is really helpful. And so while building routine now and the routine that you use in college is likely to be very different, simply having that habit of following a routine helps you to live a healthy and disciplined life. Because, as I said, when we have a successful morning, we're more likely to have a successful and productive rest of the day. And so just being in that habit and creating that when you get here will really help keep you on track. And then also just uncover areas you can improve. So take time to understand what you value, what you prioritize, what your goals are, and what you're passionate about. Because, or like, if you're likely to procrastinate, start building those habits of self-discipline. Or if you tend to be a perfectionist, then take time to understand whether your expectations are realistic. Just kind of getting to know yourself and your expectations and your habits better, and then building better habits so that you can become the person you want to be. So those are some big tips that immediately came to mind for me, and I hope they're helpful. But just, continue to pray to discern God's will in your life faithfully. So, if you've already committed to Christendom, maybe start praying for your professors, your classmates, and the graces you'll need to thrive in this environment. Or if you're still deciding, maybe just pray that God will guide you to that college, whether it's here or somewhere else, and just preparing you for the person that you'll be. You'll all be in my prayers as we discern this. But
No,
I'm happy to answer
great.
any other questions.
That's so helpful. I think, this is something I'm really glad we're doing this. We didn't do a webinar like this last year. And so I'm very thankful that we're having this discussion now to introduce you to the incoming students early on. And hopefully we'll get you in front of them more and more before we have a student who's got an academic issue or anything like that. This is a personal recommendation, so I can't recommend it on behalf of the school. Like, this is my own personal thing. But there's a book called Atomic Habits. I'm trying to remember the author right now, but I read that probably at the end of my college career, and it was really helpful as far as at least taking advantage of my own laziness and learning, as Kaelan said, all those different things like knowing yourself, but helping build habits that actually work with you. That's just that's a really worthwhile book that kind of changed the way I looked at, like, how do I build habits? I'm not just going to fix everything all at once, but it's little changes a little bit at a time that we can get ourselves on the right path. So it's a secular book, so not everything is 100% all sane, but it's, as far as the practicals, I think there's a lot of commonality between Aristotle and the like. So that's one small thing. So Mary Grace Nilsson asks, are there opportunities to test out of certain freshman classes? So I'm assuming she's going in, she sees, I've already been doing Latin for a number of years. Do I have to take Latin 101?
Yeah, so there are ways to test out of, Latin 101. Um, and so there are, multiple levels kind of available to students. So there's the Latin 103, that's like an accelerated 101 and 102 put together. I think sometimes there's a Latin 104, and then there's also 201 and 202. So there are a lot of different Latin courses if Latin is the one that you're concerned with. And so there are definitely ways to test out of 101 and not have to do the full 2 years if you've already been doing it for several years. Yeah.
Fantastic. Can you test out of, let's say you want to test out of English. Can you test out of English?
No, so you can't test out of the core curriculum. So, English, history, philosophy, theology. Those are all, kind of build each semester. So you'll have like literature of Western civilization 1, and then second semester will be literature of Western civilization 2. And so that kind of builds throughout the whole core curriculum. All students take that.
Yeah, part of I guess the vision of this is that we really want not just the students to have an English class. We want to give them a Christendom English class. We want to give them a Christendom history class, because we're not just giving you these texts, we're giving you a Catholic perspective. We're helping you learn to think with the mind of the church. And so I think a lot of those classes are important. Now, when it comes to Latin, when it comes to, math and science, it's a lot easier to transfer in classes because there's less, I guess they're a little bit more standardized. Whereas, I think a lot of things, if you take a history class at community college, it's a very different story. And so even if there's a lot of overview and you've memorized the catechism, we want you to take theology again. We want you to take philosophy again, because we want you to have a standard, almost a boot camp experience in those first 2 years. And I think this kind of leads into Brinning's question. Brinning asks, how do I decide what major to pursue? And I'll just lead off with this and I'll let you answer it. But so you're not actually allowed to declare your major until the end of your sophomore year. So you're here for 2 years right off the bat, and you're taking the same classes as anybody else. Now, there are some differences with that. If you're interested in doing a math or a natural science major, there may be some specific classes you want to take to kind of set yourself up to declare that at the end of your sophomore year. But the way we are set up for the most part is that you are getting the same standard education from the get-go. And then from there, I'll leave that over to Kaelan.
Yeah, so as Ben is saying, then you don't declare your major till the end of sophomore year. But actually, I think oftentimes students find that that's a really amazing thing. I know that I found that personally in my own experience, because you have these 2 years to experience all of the different majors that we offer. You have a little taste of everything. You take poli-sci in sophomore year, and I hadn't experienced it until then, and then I kind of fell in love with it. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I want to major in this. And you've been taking literature, history, philosophy, theology from the beginning. And so it's a personal discernment process, and it might kind of reflect future career goals. You might think about the professors in the department. You might think about, what do you want to do, or if there's specific classes that you want to take in any given major. But you're definitely prepared, I think, by the time that you get to the end of sophomore year, because you didn't have to rush anything to choose a one-track program when you're 17 or 18 and then just stick with it and hope that it works out. You have those 2 years to discern, to get used to living in the community, to develop relationships with these classmates and professors, and then kind of see where you want to take it from there.
No, that's wonderful. That's really good. I think I couldn't have said it better myself. So with that, we'll move on. Anthony McGowan asks, would you recommend writing practice essays before going in, so before matriculating, to get used to writing academic essays?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on what your high school experience looks like. Maybe you're already writing papers, and you feel pretty comfortable with that. Maybe you're in a more maybe STEM-based school, and so you don't have that experience writing papers as much. That's definitely something that you could try doing. Or also, I just recommend reading great works, because as you read and become familiar with these authors, you kind of tend to pick up on these like writing skills the more familiar that you become with them. And so even if you just really enjoy reading, that will transition into your writing skills as well. You could try practicing, and if you're worried about being able to write the papers, just thinking like, okay, 5-paragraph essay, or maybe just as you read things, analyzing them and saying, how could I write a paper based on this? Or start looking out for those ways that I see, okay, here's a topic that I could run with. what supportive arguments and information do I see here that I could pull and create like a logical structure for a paper. So I hope that answers the question. Um, yeah, definitely just kind of feeling comfortable with your writing. I will be honest that my high school experience didn't involve a lot of writing essays. And when I first came to Christendom, I was really overwhelmed because I had a lot of classmates who were classically educated. And so they're like, not only have I read this book before, but I've written 3 papers on it already. I was like, I've never heard of this book, and now I have to read it and understand it as well as everyone else. How am I ever going to keep up? Um, and so, if you feel like you're kind of in that boat of like, I feel like I don't know how to write papers like everybody else does, or I just feel like I don't know what these books even mean. Again, we have these resources. I'm here to help. You have your professors in office hours, the writing center, tutors and mentors. And so if that is a concern, like we definitely want you to succeed, and I'm happy to help you work through those concerns.
That's fantastic. No, I think that's a good answer. I mean, if you want to answer, if you want to write an essay, go ahead and write an essay. It's not going to hurt you. Learning to write well and write quickly is going to be a good thing. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, maybe you could. I think, as Kaelan said, the reading great literature. I remember my English professor my freshman year said, read great literature, anything except for Chesterton, because Chesterton is inimitable, and if you try to write like Chesterton, you're going to fail. But anybody else is a worthwhile person to imitate and grow and style of. So I think that's a good bit of advice there, Kaelan. Mary, last 2 questions, unless somebody else types in something as you're answering it. Mary Grace once again asks, when are classes selected? Or are all freshmen and sophomores on the same schedule? And are any classes held at night? So part A, part B. Hopefully that makes
Okay,
sense.
so to address part A, so classes, so not everybody's on the exact same schedule. So for the most part, freshmen and sophomores are taking classes in the core curriculum. And so you'll all be taking maybe like literature 101, literature 102. But, we have multiple professors, so everybody's not doing the exact same thing. There's often, I believe for freshman year, it's in late summer that registration is sent out, and it's an online process with our registrar, Walter Gennaro. And so he'll contact you, and then you'll fill in, you could see the time that the class is being offered and the professor that it's being offered with. And then based on that, you can kind of build your class schedule. So again, there are all these students registering at once. So you're not guaranteed to get all your maybe first picks, but everyone is taking essentially the same courses with a little bit of variety for math, science, and languages. But generally, yes, then literature, philosophy, history, and theology will all be, everyone taking 101 at the same time, 102 at the same time, and likewise in sophomore year. But there will be variety with the time of day, the location, professor, and all of that. Do you have anything to say on that, Ben, before I jump into part two?
Yeah, I mean, it's and there's a wide array of different professors and things like that. If you want any recommendations, please come talk to me beforehand. I'd be happy to share some of my favorite professors. I think all of our professors are Christendom. Like we're not hiring them just out of nowhere. We have perfect professors that come here because they want to be here, and they're dynamic. They just a little bit of inside baseball. Um, Typical professor at a college teaches a total of 2 sections a semester, right? Two sections in the fall, 2 sections in the spring. Maybe they'll do 3. At Christendom, we are a teaching university, like a teaching college. We're not trying to create researchers. And so our professors teach typically between 4 and 5 sections a semester, which is insane. It's a lot. And they do it because they love teaching. And so I think no matter what, you're going to get a good professor on that. And then I'm happy to answer the last question, Kayla, unless you want to add anything. We do have classes at night because we have certain professors that are also working professionals. I know like, for instance, Dr. Madden, he works in the Justice Department. He teaches a constitutional law class. He's fantastic. We have a math professor who works for Jet Propulsion Laboratory during the day and does night classes once a week. And it's NASA's California thing. He works remotely, but he teaches on here, and he's also a Christian alum. He's fantastic. But there's all sorts of different opportunities. We're not you'll I don't think you'll ever be forced to do a night class unless there's a specific class that you need to take. that's only offered at that time, but that wouldn't come into your junior or senior year. Our registrar Walter Gennaro, he's fantastic. He's been at Christendom longer than anybody else. He's going to work with you. And yeah, as Kaelan said, registration opens up mid-July. And you may have friends right now that are looking at University of Virginia, wherever, that are registering for classes now. I know it's exciting and you might feel like you're falling behind. It's okay. At Christendom, we don't do that until the summer, and it's totally fine. So I don't want you to get worried or anything like that. It looks like we've answered all the questions, which is fantastic. Thank you guys for your questions. Kaelan, are there any final thoughts? I mean, I think we gave you a great summing up thing, but before we let you go, any final things that you'd want to say for posterity?
Just one more thing about the night classes.
Oh,
Oftentimes, um, there will be these evening classes that are 6:30 to 7:45, and that would be the case sometimes for Latin and for Spanish, because as Ben said, then these professors might have other jobs during the day. Um, and so those are like these evening classes, and they're still, the length of a normal Tuesday, Thursday, and they're held on Tuesday, Thursday. There are also night classes that are, 6:30 to 9:15 once a week. Those are like what people known as like the infamous night classes. But those are typically you don't encounter those until you've declared your major and it's a course specific to your major. So you're not going to be thrown into some long late night class as a freshman or usually even as a sophomore. It's going to be something that you almost choose to inflict upon yourself. So yeah, that's not like a big stressor there.
great. Well, I think it's been a fantastic conversation. It's been delightful to speak with you, Kaelan. That's everything that we have for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. My email is ben.marsh@christendom.edu, and I'm happy to answer any questions. We try to respond very quickly. Looking forward to welcoming you all in August. If you ever have any questions, again, please don't hesitate to reach out. Let's close in a prayer and send all these people on their way. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. All glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Saint Joseph, pray for us. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you all. Thank you, Kaelan, and have a great evening. God bless.